Good morning, everyone. My name is Elena Demidova. You're attending Parallel Track 3, Optimizing Open Data Portals and User Interfaces of the SEMIC 2020 conference, the annual Semantic Interoperability Conference. And I'm very happy to be here today because this conference, and in particular this panel, is very closely connected to the area of my research interest. I'm computer scientist, professor of computer science since the beginning of this month, working at the University of Bonn in Germany. And in this role, I contribute to many projects where availability of data plays a very important role. And just to give you one particular example, so we have a Horizon 2020 project, which is called Smash Hit, where we develop technologies to make data available in the industrial context, right, to facilitate exchange of data between organizations, and facilitate also transparency of data sharing. And there we see every day how important it is that we have more data. The data is a fuel for the development of artificial intelligence technologies, for digitization in all member states, in Europe as a whole. And as a data scientist, I'm very happy to see that we have increasing amount of data being available through open data portals in Europe and making public administration data available. And we will see some prominent examples of this today. So I'm very happy to introduce our speakers. First of all, with us today is Eileen Fuchs. She's the head of division for digital policy in EU and digital international affairs at Federal Ministry of Interior for Building and Community in Germany. Welcome, Eileen.
Hello.
And then we have Rhoda Kerins. So she is head of Open Data Unit at the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform in Ireland. Welcome, Rhoda. And Christian Horn is with us. He is head of GovData Business and Coordination Office at GovData. This is the Open Government Data Portal for Germany. So welcome, Christian.
Hello.
And with us today is also Michal Kuban. He is National Open Data Coordinator at Ministry of Interior of the Czech Republic. So welcome.
Hello.
Then I would like to warmly welcome our audience. So I have seen this morning that we have 290 participants signed up to our track. So this is a very good number. And we have the session today structured in the three parts. So first of all, there will be a brief introductions of the topics by our panelists. Then we will have a panel discussion. And then at the end of the session, there will be a Q&A session. So our audience, please get ready to be active. You can write questions at any time point during the whole panel. You can use the Slido chat function for this. I think you know it already from today's morning, from the opening. This function is found on the right of your screen. Remember, add your organization, your name when you pose the questions, and also please indicate the name of the speaker whom you would like to address. Also, please be concise because our time today is limited, of course, very strictly. We have exactly 1 hour for the panel. And this is why I would also like to ask our speakers to be concise and to pay attention to the timing. We will start with the individual presentations of our speakers. And our first speaker will be Eileen Fuchs. Eileen is a trained lawyer. She began her career with the Federal Ministry of Interior for Building and Community in Germany already in 2008. Currently, she works as a head of division for digital policy, EU and international affairs there. Recently, she worked in strategy and policy planning, digital and cyber policy matters, and her current focus areas include data ethics, digital autonomy, algorithm regulation, and open data. Welcome, Eileen. You have exactly 6.5 minutes time from now. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elena. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to see so many distinguished speakers here today. And that SEMIC is a success in COVID times, digital-wise, and I think it shows the importance of data sharing so much more. And what was said this morning, I think, gives a very good overview of the everyday hassle we have and how we master it, though, at the same time. So, speaking about interoperability, there needs to be data, and it's our job to provide that open data as governments, as administrations. So I have a little presentation here for you that I would like to show you today on the German open data ecosystem. So what were our experiences and what are next steps when it comes to that? So perhaps just setting out the structure. How is open data provided in Germany, in a federal state of 80 million people? So we do have data producers on all levels of government, all levels of administration, federal, the so-called Länder, that is different federal states, and even on in the communities themselves. So they then give their data to data providers who are also organized on different federal levels. That can be the federal level, like federal ministries, or our federal statistical office, or it can be dedicated data portals for certain uses of data, like geological data, for example. And of course, metadata, which is something that Christian Horn will later then give you an overview. That is the federal common metadata portal, GovData. So all the federal and the Länder and the communities provide their metadata with same standard to GovData, which is very important. So these are the data providers. And then, of course, the data users, which is everyone. So private, public, and civil society. So yeah, but what is the Federal Ministry of Interior doing in that regard? We are responsible for the coordination of these processes on the federal level, and for actually drafting and putting policy into practice and pushing the topic of open data further. So you can see on the right chart kind of the different the different structures or the structure that we have established. So the data flows into the metadata flows into our GovData national portal, and that is harvested by the European data portal. So you can see that we have, in fact, a system that is working quite well. But we need, of course, to drive it further in a data-driven economy to make the full use of the open data that we have in Germany available. So we did identify a few impediments to open data in the last years, and I think just give you a short. Just name 3 of those impediments. I think there is lacking awareness of benefits of open data within the administration. There's a lack of standardization in general when it comes to formats and processes, and there's a lack of ability to exchange information between the different levels of government. So what are the possible solutions to that? We drafted a second open data law. And that second open data law, you can see under number 3, has one of its core aims is to establish open data stewards who will foster and support fellow employees and push the topic. Then we want to further networking for open data actors. So we want to create regular and diverse exchanges by our Competence Center for Open Data. Forgot to say that before. Competence Center Open Data is our advisory and operational support for working for federal government. And then we have, for the long term, open data strategy and open data trainings. So we want to define goals, coordinate projects, and provide funding. And we want to increase open data awareness and accelerate cultural change. And that is one of the main aims of our Competence Center Open Data, which we want to strengthen so they can actually establish structures and trainings for all civil servants and policy officers. So when we come to facilitated data provision and usage by all government entities, there is, of course, standardization as a big topic. I was talking about metadata, and we need to make sure that data are published with metadata in appliance to the format Decade AP, which is working quite well, but needs to be further pushed on the European level, of course. We do want to work further on setting formats and helping organizations to publish data in the most usable machine-readable formats. And we would like to support data offices in following proven and standardized processes for publication and facilitate use and visualization. So this is the kind of work program we have set up for the next few years, and that's actually quite a bit, but we're very happy to have so many dedicated people in the open data community in Germany who actually contribute to that. So this is just in short our ecosystem and the steps planned ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eileen. So now I would like to ask our audience, please, if you have any questions to Eileen, send them in the Slido channel, and we will continue with our next speaker. This is Rhoda Kerens, and Rhoda is head of Open Data Unit in the Department of Expenditure and Reform with policy responsibility for Ireland Open Data Initiative and Open Data Directive. Rhoda leads the implementation of National Open Data Strategy and is responsible for Ireland Open Data Portal. Open Data Unit is a relatively small unit. We have only 4 people who work there, but they are passionate about open data. And despite the small size, there have been very impressive results. So we have seen that Ireland has been #1 in the EU Open Data Maturity Survey in the last 3 years. So welcome, Rhoda. The floor is yours. You have 6.5 minutes.
Thank you, Elena. And good morning from Dublin. Delighted to talk to you this morning about Ireland's open data journey. As Elena mentioned, Ireland has been ranked #1 in the EU for the last 3 years running. And this was accomplished from an early standstill position in 2014. My presentation, I have a presentation this morning, you might just start it. The presentation this morning provides a brief overview of Ireland's Open Data Initiative and the structures which have underpinned its success. Next slide, please. Strong governance structures were put in place in 2015, and this is underpinned by the Open Data Governance Board, which reports to Minister McGrath. And the board leads and drives the Open Data Initiative and ensures the implementation of the Open Data Strategy. We believe it's important to have a broad representation of the stakeholders on the board. So its membership comprised of people from academia, from business, from media, from civil society, and from some of the large data holders across the public sector. The advisory group then is a cross-departmental group which provides technical support and advice to the Open Data Unit and the Open Data Initiative. And they also act as champions across the public sector, ensuring a coherent and consistent approach to data publication. And of course, open data doesn't just sit on its own in a silo. It is part of a legislative package, and it's embedded into data policies and data strategies, such as the Data Sharing Act, the National Infrastructure Strategy, and the Public Service Data Strategy, as well as public service reform and civil service reform. Across the public service, then we have our open data liaison officers as well, and these really are our people who drive it within each individual public sector organisation. Next slide, please. The 3 pillars that the Open Data Initiative is really built on is our strategy, our national strategy, which sets out the objectives and the goals for open data, but also a key element of it is an implementation plan, which sets out the tasks and activities to be carried out by public bodies against a timeline. Our technical framework then is really a guidance document. It's a technical guidance document for publishers of data, and it sets out the standards, the metadata schema, the recommended license. We use the CC by 4.0 license for the vast majority of data on the portal. The portal is fully DCAT compliant. So that is a guide for publishers when they are publishing data and steps them through what they need to put in place to have their data meet the standard required. Of course, our Open Data Portal is the cornerstone of our initiative. We have over 10,000 data sets on the portal, and we continue to improve it year on year. This year we added impact stories, which provide examples on how data is being used. So they tell a story with the data and demonstrate the impact of the data, of open data. We've also added things like feedback and likes to data sets. But while we focused a lot on quantity, we have now moved to the quality of the data. And our objective is to ensure the completeness and the provenance of the data, so therefore building depth and reusability of the data. Next slide, please. A large part of our work is engaging with the publishers of the data and the reusers of the data. And we meet with public bodies and we attend events to talk with reusers and to publicise the data that's available on the portal. A very successful vehicle for bringing publishers and reusers together has been our Open Data Impact series events, which focus on a particular data domain and bring the publishers together and the reusers together to discuss how data is being used, issues that users might be having with data, how improvements, simple improvements could really benefit. So it really can be an eye-opener for the data publishers, and it really helps a really cross-pollination of ideas between the publishers and the reusers of the data. Next slide, please. I'm just going to finish with a couple of examples of use cases that are on our, there you can see them on data.gov.ie. A number of these, toughsouls.ie there on Data Times, are receive funding through the Engagement Fund, which we provide. And just as a quick mention, the Tough Souls, the guy that's pictured there walked 4,000 kilometres of trails and walks across Ireland and mapped them, and that's all available as open data through the portal. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them for the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rhoda. So I see that some questions are already coming through the portal, so please send us more questions, and we will answer all of them, or as many as we manage in the time at the end of the session. So please submit your questions. And in the meantime, I would like to introduce our next speaker. This is Christian Horn. Christian has been the head of GovData Office and Coordination Office data portal for Germany since 2015. Christian Horn recently worked on various projects in the field of open data. He is member of advisory board for draft standard for high quality data and metadata and study of high value data sets on behalf of the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy in Germany. Christian, you have 6.5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. Can we please start the slides? First, I'm very pleased to be here and to talk about open data in Germany, but most of the things I wanted to say, Eileen also said about the open government, open data landscape in Germany. So I can start with, I can concentrate to my role for GovData. Next slide, please. And then the next slide. Thank you. Eileen also told you about the construction of open data in Germany with GovData in between the open data portals on the local level and the European open data, European data portal, and so on. GovData is a common portal for all federal levels, and it's managed by all federal levels or by the German government and the Länder. in our times, or today, currently, we have about 38,000 data sets, and hopefully it will become much more the next year. I'm looking very forward to it. Next slide, please. The maturity report was mentioned by Rhoda, and Germany, unfortunately, is not so successful in the maturity report the last years. It ended up in the midfield, and that cannot be our claim. The area we are most likely to influence is portal development, so we concentrate on that part in the next few minutes. We are currently in the process of developing and improving our portal in several sections. So hopefully we will be better in the ranking in the next years. Next slide, please. But what are our plans? We have, you can see it on the screen. We work on the triple store in the back end. With the triple store, we can provide the data in such a way that it can also be used for linked open data. We worked on preview function. You already know preview functions from other portals like the European Data Portal. And for certain data formats, we would like to enable a simple preview function for the content of the data. For example, the display of the graph for a CSV file or a map section for geodata. The dashboard, it's a little bit like that, like Rhoda shows in her slides. We want to provide the dashboard as a service for the data providers who can check the quality of metadata, and on the other hand, it also allows us to have a quickly check who is providing the metadata and what quality. In the showroom, we will collect and present good examples how open data is already being used. Next slide, please. We are also responsible for the PDE development in Germany, and we are now running on the version 1.1, and we have postponed the further development to DKIP 2.0 until next year because we wanted to clarify open issues together with the DKIP working group on the European level. The validation, we want to support our data providers with a tool that allows them to check the metadata quality of their data automatically and without our help. So, and you will find it in the dashboard. And last but not least, DKIP working group. Germany became very actively involved in the DKIP working group last year. From our point of view, the DKIP working group needs to be strengthened for a better interoperability and metadata quality within the European Open Data Network. So I think that is something we have to discuss. We can discuss afterwards, but I think there's a lot of things we can do. Next slide, please. And that's, I will finish, and I'm looking forward to your question.
Thank you very much, Christian. And yes, please send your question through the Slido chat function also to Christian. And please also include your names and organizations. I think it's also possible to send anonymous questions, but of course, if it's good for us to know who you are, that we can also come back to you. And in the meantime, I would like to introduce our next speaker. This is Michal Kuban. Michal's background is in history. And in the past, he worked as open data evangelist and advocate at Open Society Fund Prague to promote transparency, accountability through open data. Currently, he is working as a National Open Data Coordinator at the Ministry of Interior of the Czech Republic, being responsible for national open data policy. He also leads Czech Open Data Task Force and is a member of expert group on open government data of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and he is a member of European Commission Public Sector Information Expert Group. Michael, welcome. You have 6.5 minutes and you have the floor.
Good morning, greetings from Prague. First of all, let me say that I'm very pleased to be invited and talk at the SEMIC conference 2020. And I have a small presentation prepared. Perfect. I assume that it's not that difficult to answer the question which is entitled at the name of my presentation. And I must say that once for all, the quality of open data is a tremendous challenge for the entire open data ecosystem. Well, because the quality, unacceptable quality and poor quality of the data or open data with the poor data quality, there will not be any open data consumer to use it. And that's pretty obvious. And in my presentation, I would like to focus on shortly describe the Czech open data ecosystems and how we deal with the open data quality and the standardization within the Czech public administrations. So next slide, please. As you could see from the structure of our Czech open data ecosystem, the open data agenda, it's anchored to the Ministry of the Interior of the Czech Republic, but the main role is the position of National Open Data Coordinator, which leads the Open Data Task Force team. It's a group of experts who are providing technical and legal support to Czech public bodies, and across all the ministries and central institutions, we have the ministerial open data working groups, which the Open Data Task Force team providing the support to this group concerning the open data trainings, technical and legal support, and also the information concerning the latest version of the standards and the guidelines. As well, in contrast to Ireland and Germany, the Czech Republic does not have any single open data strategy. As you can see, the publishing of information and open data in general are fragmented in the Czech Republic into many ICT strategies and policies. And I think that's the element we need to work on in near future to have one data or open data strategy to move step further. As for the legal part, open data are implemented in the Freedom of Information Act, and there's one uniqueness in the Czech legislation that if you want to call open data itself, if you publish the open data and you want to call it as an open data, you have to register in the metadata, the records of metadata in the National Open Data Portal, which it's the main pillar of Czech open data ecosystem. Why you have to register the metadata of your open data from your local open data catalog to our national portal? It's simple. We are monitoring the quality of the metadata records and the availability of the current data sets, and we are providing the feedback and reports to all local open data publishers about the quality of the metadata, and we have information about what is going on the local open data publishers, and then we can provide as a national coordination body some technical support. Next slide, please. So as I said, at Czech National Open Data Portal is not only the catalog, we also provide the technical information guidelines regarding the publication and catalogization of open data. We have implemented the EU standard DCAT AP 1.2, and we are now currently working on the latest version. I hope we will be able to finish the work on the implementations at the beginning of the next year. And as I mentioned before, we have also the validation tool of the metadata records and the monitoring of the availability of the datasets. The portal itself provides also the learning modules, information, guidelines for the civil servants. Next slide. So as the last studies about the open data mentioned that 50 up to 80% of the time is spent on the cleaning the data and working with the data sets before the actual using the data for the programmer, for the data analyst. We are focusing on the standardization and data quality. So from our Open Data Task Force team, we prepared the technical guidelines, internal directives. We also prepared a sample of publication plans, the list of datasets, recommended datasets for the new cities and public bodies who are willing to open up their data to have some inspiration and to have some guidelines. We also providing the list of good and bad data practices, and as well as open data trainings, conferencing, workshop, because it's important to keep the knowledge and information about the current updates and open data policy together within the public civil servants. And we also address many challenges with a variety of formats used by individual providers, and that's also the issues we are right now dealing with, because there's once the data quality itself, but there's also the well, we can standardize the processes within the institutions. So once the institutions has its own IT systems, already by design, we would like to implement it the functionality of providing the open data, because sometimes if there's a vendor log, or if the IT system is not ready to publish the IT to open data, it's difficult to change the IT system. It costs a lot of money, so we would rather inform and help the institutions already when the new IT system in public body is created. It has to have the possibility of releasing and publishing the open data. Next slide. And for that reason, we also provide the technical open formal standards, which comes from the formal formal PSI directive, and it's a list of technical specifications with specific and particular formats, with semantic vocabulary, with concrete data models for different domain datasets, and we are basically working on this open formal standards to provide it to local municipalities, public institutions, to somehow standardize the level of the publications in order to have a unified and integrated model of datasets for one domain. And this is we are now working on, and we would like to also create the example of the applications with open data community in order to somehow to have good examples, to have motivation for public institutions to open up more data. So next slide. Thank you for your attention. I would be very pleased to answer your questions regarding my presentations.
Thank you very much, Michael. So please, our audience, send in the questions to Michael as well. And now we have seen several presentations, and we would like to come to the next point in our agenda, which is discussion. And I think we've seen many very exciting examples and very good portals where we have lots of useful data, hopefully. So the question is, what role does the users of your data play in this loop? So do you somehow involve the users in the decisions, like what should be published, how it should look like, how to make this data really useful? So what is your experience in this? So I would like just to make it as a general question to all our panelists, and maybe Eileen can start a little bit with this.
Yes, thank you, Elena. I think that's a very important question, because if we don't get feedback from our users, how can we actually distinguish whether the data that is supplied as open data is actually made use of and is valuable to the people out there? We have been doing a little bit on that, but not enough. So we are now actually together with GovData, with their help, conducting a study on feedback from users, asking them basically when they access open data, if they would be, that's the plan, to ask them to provide the reasons and they actually where they're actually based and which institution they come from and what's their specific interest in the data they want to access on GovData. So that's one part. So we're doing some research on that, and that's the plan. And the other, I think, more sophisticated solution is to establish a data wish button that is gives you a feedback loop to the data provider on from the user. That's planned in our open data strategy, so it'll only be possible to achieve that, I guess, in the midterm. But I think that is something that will open a feedback loop to the data provider, who can then get questions from data users on what was useful and if they want more data of the same, for example, and if they found the data accessible and useful. I think that's something we can do about that, but there's several other options that we need to address. I think a lot of it will come from networking that we want to make more, that we want to broaden. We have different events planned. Our Competence Center Open Data is working on a strategy to create more outreach and networking possibilities. However, at the moment with COVID, it's a bit difficult to see how that will work virtually, but there's different measures that are envisioned for the near future, such as meetups and to get in touch with the open data community. I think that's important to get the human factor in.
Okay, thank you very much. Christian, do you have anything to add from the portal side?
Yes, I'm very often in contact with the civil society or with other associations from the economy side or anything else. So I get the feedback. I think it's one of the main problems of open data, that you can't get in touch to the users, to the data users, because everybody can take the data as they want. It's free for download. So I don't know who will use the data for what. And so I'm very glad I'm in good contact to these groups of data users.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much. I think it's very, very important aspect. I mean, in like projects which I'm doing, because the data we work with comes from the industrial companies. For them, it's very, very important aspect, and they really want to see how the data is used and trace it. So maybe it could also be for this kind of governmental data, also important aspect. Maybe we could take it into consideration more in the future as well. Rhoda, what is your experience in Ireland? How is the engagement working?
Yeah, we provide several avenues for feedback on data, both through the portal. So we have our survey, which users, downloaders of data can complete and provide feedback through that. There's also, they can provide comments or feedback on a particular data set, which we feed back to the publishers of the data, and so we act as an intermediary, if you like, between the users and the publishers. But we have found the best and I suppose the most productive means of engaging with users is our impact series events, which I mentioned in the presentation, which brings users and publishers of data in a particular domain together, and the users present how they use the data, and the publishers present the data that they have, and there's a general discussion and networking event. Well, it used to be in person, but hopefully we'll get back to that fairly soon. So we have found that that's a really important, particularly for the publishers of the data, to understand how their data is being used, to understand how people want to use their data, and the data that people might prefer to have access to. Very often the publishers of data are doing a best guess as to what data is best to publish, whereas the users and the formats to publish it in, whereas bringing the users and the publishers together allows that conversation to happen, whereby the users can directly talk to the publishers and express how the issues they might be having with the data that's being provided, how simple changes to maybe the schema or to the format of the data could be a huge improvement for the users. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be back to face-to-face meetings like that, but we have moved that discussion online, and our last Impact Series event on COVID data was an online event, and we have another one or two planned for the near future as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Michal, what happens in the Czech Republic?
Yeah, I think I would divide this question in two levels. The first one is like online, because in the online world we can provide some technical tools to somehow engage the users and to comment on the data quality or open data in general. So it can be the email contact, because we are, and the Christian, we are on the same level. We are in charge of National Open Data Portal, but we are not domain experts. And sometimes we always push our local or the open data publishers, the data we are harvesting into our national portals. So please provide the contact email in order to establish the dialogue between the users and the open data providers. We also provide the open data wish list, which is basically the questionnaire asking the public about the data sets and the data they would like to have from the public institutions. And we are planning to implement some possibility of to comment on a data sets basically, or to send the email to particular institution, the provider, in our National Open Data Portal. And the second level is the physical one, it's the networking one, and I think it's very, very useful. And in the Czech Republic, we have an annual event. It's called Open Data Exhibition Expo, when the open data publishers and the users meet each other in March. It's organized by one NGO, Open Society Fund Prague, and it's a good opportunity to talk with the users, with data programmers, and to get a feedback. And there's a big hall, and publishers comes and they present their data, and they can immediately get a feedback, so which I really consider as a very, very useful, because sometimes we are living in a bubble in the institutions and we don't have a really good contact with the users, and this helps us to kind of break the barriers between the users and the open data publisher.
Thank you very much. So there have been in the meantime also quite some questions from the audience, so maybe we can try to answer some of them. So there were a few questions on the DCAT AP for metadata. So in particular, there was a question to Eileen and Christian, what do you think need to happen on the European level with regard to this DCAT AP for metadata? Helen?
Well, I can start on a political level, but I guess Christian is more involved when it comes to technicalities. But well, definitely, both public and standards bodies should work on establishing suitable standards, and that goes for the European level as well. I mean, we're talking about interoperability and standardization, and I think that's of utmost importance when we speak about open data. So how can we exchange data? How can we establish a common format on EU level? I mean, work is ongoing. It's in validation, and a further version is underway. And I think that that work needs to be intensified, and we need to put a lot of effort in it so we can get good results that will actually also take the user feedback into account. I mean, that is something that we really need to see. That is something that user centricity is at its core. So yeah, perhaps Christian wants to say something on the technical issues that accompany that.
Yeah, thank you. I think I mentioned it in my introduction, and I think there must be more work together between the member states and the European level, and inside the European Commission also we need more to work more together. For example, between the European Data Portal and the SEMIC, if you have a look on the dashboard from the European Data Portal, there are all countries are with the metadata quality, nearly all countries with 0%, and we all deliver DCAT AP, or most of the countries. So and we have there must be more. They have to talk together, and I think that's one of the most problems. And we need things like more tools for us for DKIP that we can check our quality or metadata quality if it fits to the European data portal and so on. And that's I think there's a lot of work to do, and if we get the tools from the European level, the metadata quality will be better all over Europe, I think, and that's a goal for everyone who will use the metadata in Europe, and now it's very difficult, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think there were also like follow-up questions with respect to the data quality. And there was a very prominent aspect about, is it measurable somehow? Or, for example, do you see the impact of this adopting different standards in the quality increase? And how do you perform actual measurement? Or so in this sense, there have been several questions. So maybe I would like to ask Rhoda, so how the quality is actually measured, and do you observe, as there was also a follow-up question on if you observe, for example, increase in interest or data quality from the engagement activities which you are doing?
Thank you. I think quality of data is key to the success of open data. And one of the things we ensure on the portal is that there's a set of mandatory metadata to be included with the with your data. So a mandatory set of the DCAT AP. Improving the quality overall of data depends very much on where the data is coming from and the experience and the knowledge of the people who are publishing the data. And I think, again, this comes down to educating and training and raising awareness across the public service of the importance of improving the quality of the data and ensuring it's not only just the quality of data, but the provenance of the data, that if a person begins using a data set, that they can be confident that that data set remains in place and will continue to be provided. So I agree with Christian when he mentioned there about tools that may be provided at a European level, maybe to increase the quality, to check the quality of data or check the quality of the metadata. But I think a key element to it, again, is education and awareness raising across, and the introducing as well. What we've seen as well as the new Open Data Directive comes on stream is that people are across the public sector are now much more aware of what their obligations are, and are then developing their data policies and their data strategies to ensure that the quality will be provided going forward. But again, there's a lot of legacy systems you know, there which need to be adapted and improved on. But again, it takes time to get that all in place. But I think going back to my point, education and awareness in the publishers, I think, is a key to improving the quality overall.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to also ask, Mikael, how is your experience with the standards? Do you also use DCAT AP? Do you use something different? Or?
Yes, as I said in my presentation, we are in the process of implementing the latest version of DCAT AP, the 2.0 standard, and I hope you'll be able to manage it to finish the process at the beginning of the next year. There's still some issues, technical issues we would like to raise, and I would actually also agree with Christian that we mentioned we can do more together, and also to be more in touch with the commissions, because some of the for instance, tools for measuring the metadata quality in European data portal are not really discussed with the member states, and some of the things are not really clear, and I would really call for more networking support or some coordination body which could help us to join to these discussions. And as from the position of the Czech Republic, we would really like to join and do real work. It can be split into programs on some projects where we would like to participate, because then we can really together have some impact on the measuring the quality of open data. So, and in this particular field, we would like to be really active, because I think that we are aware of it, and some of the members have the capacity of to join and to really help, even on a side, to help within the SEMIC community and with the entire open data community across the member states. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. There was also a question about the data services. So, because so far we talked mainly about data sets, and there was a question about experiences with sharing descriptions of data services. Is that something happening? Christian, do we have some on the portal?
I'm not sure. The data service, now we are working on it, so not yet.
So something for the next step, Michal?
From our position, we are also working on this latest version of DCAN AP 2.0, which will enable us to register in the data services. And so far, currently in the Czech Republic, we don't have any data service registered in our national open data catalog, because this is the main topic for the next coming debate, also in I guess also in a EU level.
Okay.
The same as us. We are also waiting for DCAN AP 2.0 next year.
Rodat, is something already available in Ireland, or you're also waiting?
It's something that we are working towards. Again, we are redefining we have a new draft of our technical framework, the technical guidelines, and that's working towards DCAT AP 2.0. But again, it's something that's in train. It's not something that we have in place yet.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There was also a question about usage of DOIs, so the identifiers of the data. Are they in use in any of the portals you have? Just a general question to everybody.
We encourage their use. We have a number of 5-star data sets on the portal, and we are looking to increase that. We've been working with a number of the larger data holders who are putting in place, they have their strategy in place, and they're moving towards that over the next 6 months to a year. It's not I suppose, a quick solution to put in place, but it's something that we do recommend and we do encourage.
Okay, thank you. And another question was about governance perspective on having data owners defined. Maybe can someone tell something how the experience is with this? Do you think it's important, Eileen?
I mean, there's been a long discussion about the data ownership, I think. There's good reasons to actually argue that ownership of data, in a sense of legal ownership, doesn't fit the concept of data as a subject that's something that needs to move to be usable. We've been discussing it intensely. Also, the Data Ethics Commission, the German Data Ethics Commission, has had deliberations on the subject. They published their reports last October, and they actually recommended not to introduce a data ownership. So I think that's something that the German government actually does definitely, or is of the same opinion. We need to talk about rights to data and the licensing, and we also have a very good system in place of rights to data, and I think when it comes to that, we need to set it against open data. So I think we have a pretty good system in place, so I don't think we need to introduce a further legal obstacle, which would data ownership be, in my sense, in my view. I think that's something we need to focus on, and we've been discussing it, but it's not high on our agenda at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And so maybe one question in the context of data quality is how fresh the data actually is. So because we have, of course, two perspectives. We have historical perspective. We sometimes want to see what happened like 10 years ago, maybe. But for example, today with the COVID-19 situation, it's also very important to have fresh data and to understand what happens right now. So how useful are the data sets in the portals now for answering like up-to-date questions from like today and maybe yesterday? Christian, what is your experience?
Yes, I think the data we provide is the quality is very, very different, and also it's we have the providers use different data formats, data structures, and that makes it very, very difficult to use the data. Another problem is in Germany. I think it's all over Europe, but in Germany, I know it. We have a very uneven provision of data across all federal levels in Germany. We have only 111,000 local authorities, only about half of the German Länder. And at the ministerial level, we have some of the ministries just begun with the publication, with the opening of the data. And for you mentioned the COVID crisis, for example, the Federal Ministry of Fields has still provided no data set at all. So I think that's a problem we have, and that makes it very hard to use the data. One thing we worked on to rise the data quality is the Fraunhofer Focus Institute. They made a guideline for quality of data and metadata, and I think it's a very, very good paper. It's only available in German language, so but the idea, I think it's good. It gives instructions and guidance on the publication of the main data formats and on metadata. So it's a very good helpful guide for the data providers.
Thank you. And Rhoda, what about the Ireland portal? So do you have any experience with the freshness of data?
We have, well, I suppose the ideal is for data to be provided as close to the source and as soon after it's produced as possible. And with that in mind, we have there is a large volume of data provided via APIs. While the number of APIs may not be huge, may not be large, the quantity of the data that's being provided through APIs is actually quite large. And we continue to encourage public bodies to produce as much data as they can, as close to the source and as quickly as possible. And I think a real example of that was seen during the COVID crisis, and as it continues, unfortunately, when the data was initially made available. And in fairness to our health service, they foresaw that there would be a demand for the data, for the COVID data, and they put in place a process whereby the data could be made available each day as open data. And the the response to that on the portal was enormous. We saw a 40% increase over April and May on traffic to the portal, not only on the COVID data, but on all the data relating to that, data relating to hospitals, data relating to pharmacies, nursing homes, all that sort of data was, the usage of it increased exponentially over that period and continues to be utilised. So where data is provided, I think the lesson that's learned from that is where data is provided, fresh data that's available as quickly as possible and as soon as it can be produced, users do use it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm watching the time a little bit. I think we are reaching the end of our time frame. So this is why I would like, first of all, to thank our amazing speakers for the insightful presentations, for the discussion, and for all the points which were raised today. And I think that just an ongoing process which we need to continue. We need to continue the discussion, and we need to find solutions to the problems, to make our data more available. And of course, we have also seen very interesting portals, and I would like to also encourage our audience to actually use this data and try it out and see how they can use it, and give some feedback from the user perspective also to the portals. And yes, so I also would like to ask to thank our audience for the active participations, for the questions. So maybe we didn't have time to answer all the questions in detail, but please don't be afraid, your questions are not lost. We will collect them all, and the organizers also said that they will work to provide a list of frequently asked questions with answers. And also, you have a possibility, of course, to contact our speakers. Also, after the event, you will see the contact data on the slide, which will be shown in the stream after we finish. And you please feel free also to send messages and questions to the speakers directly. So now we are closing this panel. So please also take a moment to eat something. So in the in the lunch break, so that you can be productive in the afternoon part of the event as well. We will see you back at 2 for the EU Datathon session, and then we will meet graduate and master students during the Interoperability Academy Speaking Corner. I would like to thank everybody for your attention and for your time. And we have reached the end of the panel. Thank you.